Good afternoon again, everybody, and I'm glad to be back here to give this session on public safety concerns and precautions. Um, we all know we are in strange times, and things are not the way they used to be in the last 3, 4 years. So everybody's still kind of wary about what to do, where to go. Am I okay to go back to work? How about my elderly parents that live with me? Am I not going to bring something home for them? How about my little baby? Am I putting my little baby at risk? So these are some of the questions that some of us might have that might be bothering us at the moment. But then I focused this session to see what some of these concerns are, and what precautions we could take as individuals. And we would also see what the government is doing at the moment. Okay. So first off, let's identify what safety precautions is as a definition. So it's defined as any condition, practice, or violation that causes a substantial probability of physical harm, property loss, and or environmental damage. So that's what safety concern is as a definition. So anything that's or any condition of violation that can cause a substantial amount of physical harm, or that has the probability or that has a chance of causing physical harm, property loss, and or environmental damage is a safety concern. At the moment, the COVID situation is a safety concern for everybody because of the physical and the health harm that it can cause for some people. So, what are some of the concerns post easing of restrictions now or post COVID? So, what are some of the safety concerns that people have? So, safety concerns that people have at the moment could be at the workplace. Am I safe to return to work? A lot of offices are now opening up. I think from September 6th, a lot of people are now returning to their workplaces. Places of worship are now being opened with no restrictions. There is no legal requirements of whether people should be socially distanced or not. Schools, I think, is the most alarming, because I work in a school myself, and I see it as being at risk every day. Even though I've had my 2 doses of vaccination, I still feel at risk because of the number of students you have in the school, the number of teachers. There's no requirement for wearing masks in the corridors and the classrooms. The best you would get is get all the windows opened. And now that it's getting colder, people are complaining, oh, it's cold in the classrooms. Can we shut the windows and all of that? So everywhere is kind of giving a bit of safety concern for people. On public transport, we can't exhaust this one, because most of us are affected. Some of us are lucky that we can drive to our workplaces. Some are not lucky because they work in central locations and they have to go on the bus, the tram, the train. What is required of them? How are they going to stay safe? Is it safe for them to go back to work using public transport? Or they can't resign because they have to work, they have to pay their bills. So we will look at some of the concerns that people have during these seasons. Now let's look at back to work. We know that most people have been working from home since March last year for like over a year. For example, my husband has been working from home since last year, March. This was shortly before the lockdown. And with him, his case of working from home started even before the lockdown. An email was sent at work that a staff was showing symptoms. They've not confirmed it yet, but they just sent a random email to all staff that the staff was showing symptoms and has been asked to go home. Everybody was alarmed. And then the next day being a Friday, was on a Thursday. The next day being a Friday, they normally would work from home on Fridays. So when he got home, he said to me, there's a potential case at work and I'm scared of going back to work. Our son was not up to a year then. He said, I can't bring this home. I can't put everybody at risk. I said, I can't go back to work. This was before the lockdown. So during their meeting on the Friday morning, he expressed his concern to another colleague, and the colleague expressed the same concern that he's also not returning to work on Monday. So they all expressed their concerns to their boss, and their boss said, "Well, if this is the case, then he has nothing to say, but they all should start working from home." So they started working from home before March the 23rd, when everybody now went into the general lockdown. But now offices are opening up gradually, and you can tell if you commute to work because you realize that buses are now being full, trains are now packed up, trams, the same thing. Everything is all packed up because people are now returning back to working on site. Now, what are the concerns? What are the worries we have? Some of us have children at home that are not vaccinated. Children are catching this illness, and we never can tell. Some might have children that are that have very weak immune system and might be really bad for them. So not everybody have that strong immune system. So some people are of the opinion that they should continue to work from home, but employers see it as people are not being productive, which I think it is not true, because from what I can gather from most of my friends that are working from home, they are even working more now that they are working from home than when they were working on site. So this is one of the issues people have. But employers are not having it. But some employers are nice enough now that they are doing like a shift kind of thing. So people will come in like 2 days a week this week, and then others will come 3 days a week, and then the following week they turn it around. So this is good. This is good for some employment, but some employment can't just let their staff go to completely work from home. So they can't remotely work from home. So what is there for them? What concerns will their staff have? So most people are now back to work from home. Some of the challenges that people have faced or are facing. Do we have anyone that works that has that has started working, going back to site?
Yes.
Okay, please, can you share with us some of your experiences or some of the challenges you think you are facing or you faced going back to work?
Well, to be honest with you, we because I'm into IT, we monitor the network. So, um, what we did, like you rightly said, was to have a rota where some people are in for so amount of days, and some people work from home. Then the following week we have to rotate it as well,
Mm,
just so we can have everyone could be more spacious area to work, and to avoid that physical contact as well. So other than that, even before the lockdown, anyway, we'll be working from home remotely
mm,
sometimes, most
mm.
times anyway. So that didn't really affect us apart from probably other departments. Yeah. So for us,
Okay.
it was like normal thing as well.
Okay. Okay. Which is very good. And I like the fact that you said that leaving room for more space,
Yeah.
because some employers now don't care. Everybody's returning back to work, still choked up in that little space. And there is a great risk of infection passing across in small spaces. Because if you have a space that used to take about 12 staff before, now with the COVID situation, what we should have is maybe maximum of 6. Half it. Let the first 6 come to work on maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the
Yeah.
other half come to work Wednesday to Thursday and Friday, and then turn it around the following week. So
Yeah.
everybody has a share of, okay, you work from home this week, I work from home next week.
Yeah.
But having everybody come back to work in that little space would not help us manage the situation, because in that situation, the infection can still be passed around people within that small space. And also bearing in mind that there is no legal requirements for wearing face masks anymore indoor. So I think that is one of the major problems we have at the moment in England. Do you know what is expected of you as you return to work? And do you know what your employer should put in place for your safety? These are some questions we need to ask ourselves, because people have been taking their employers to employers tribunal, or I think that's what's called employers tribunal, or the there's a name for it now, where you take your employer to court. Anyway,
Yeah.
people have been taking their employers to court, and there are 2 cases I would like us to have a look at. So do you know what is expected of you as you return to work? Do you know what your employers should put in place? If you get to work and you realize that the place is all choked up, the windows are tightly shut, then you should lend your voice. At that point, you should start speaking up. Guys, I don't feel comfortable here. Even though I've been vaccinated, I have a child at home who is not vaccinated. The fact that I've been vaccinated does not mean that I can't carry it and take it back home, especially with this Delta variant that is spreading like wildfire. I think the Delta variant is our major concern right now, because even With the vaccines, they can't guarantee us that we are being protected 100% from the Delta variant, knowing fully well that no vaccine provides 100% cover. So the Delta variant is a major problem. Are you aware of the company's policy regarding COVID-19? So this is one thing we need to educate ourselves about if we are not, if we haven't done that. Where I work, they keep updating this policy almost once the government release something again, they update the school's policy, and then they make sure we have a read. Make sure you have a read. Anyone that concerns you, make sure you highlight it. And then where you don't feel comfortable, feel free to pass it on to your team leader or your manager, as the case may be. And if you're the manager, you can pass it on to those at the top. Right. Do you know who to report to if you have any concerns about your safety? That's very important. Our safety is paramount. I used to tell people that I'm sorry to say this because maybe because I'm still an employee and I don't have a company of my own, that no job is worth the stress. Because the truth of the matter is, if anything happens to anybody today, all they will do is give you probably a minute silence, or maybe send flowers to your family, send money to your family. That's it. Within the next couple of minutes, the next couple of days, they will replace you. No one is irreplaceable. So we need to look after ourselves first. That is very, very important. Look after ourselves first. For those of us who have bosses, for those of us who have been employed, for the employers amongst us, I'm sorry to say this, but it's the truth. You want your business to continue, you want your employment to progress, you want profit. So if an employer is ill or passes away, God forbid, we are quick to replace them. Nobody is irreplaceable. Even the best ones, we replace them quickly. So I would always encourage employees, please look after yourself. Your health is important. Your safety is paramount. Do you know who to report to if you have any concerns? Don't just take matters into your hands and do what you think is best for you. Speak to someone about it. If that person is not doing anything about it, speak to the next person and then start to escalate it. What I normally tell people is start copying people in emails. By the time you start copying people in emails, they will respond to you quickly. And then if nothing is now being done about the situation and you're sure you're doing everything right according to the company's policies and procedure, then you can then start taking further actions. So can an employer, I got this morning back to the office, and employees with health and safety concerns. Can an employer dismiss an employee who refuses to return? Now, people are returning back to work. Companies are rewriting their procedures, their policies to include COVID-19 regulations and all that. But then we have some employees who have decided not to return, or asked for follow, or what was the other thing he requested for? He had two requests. So we had two people that have taken their employers to court recently. So it was a logical thing to do in 2020 when the pandemic was at its peak. However, now that things are starting to open up and some want to continue to work from home due to being at risk or living with someone who is at risk, I don't blame them. If they're at risk, someone who is sickle cell anemia or would want to, I would say, if that person can continue to work from home, if the work can be done remotely, let them continue to work from home. Let's not put them at risk. We all should, employers should consider this set of people in their company policies. Now, employees need to be careful about this. So as employees, we need to be careful when we are thinking about not returning to work or trying to do what we think is best for us. So, okay, there's a section of the Employment Rights Act 1996 that it provides that an employee can be automatically unfairly dismissed if that employee takes appropriate steps to protect himself or herself in circumstances of danger, which she reasonably believes to be serious and imminent, and is dismissed as a result. So it can be regarded as being unfairly dismissed. Now let's look at two cases. But before then, one, what we need to do as individuals, as employees, we need to confirm what policies are in place from our employers about working from home and returning to the workplace. I've said that earlier. Confirm what policies are in place. And also employers, they have a duty of care to make returning to the workplace a smooth transition whilst following the government's guidelines. They need to make it a smooth transition. For example, people have been working from home for 1 year and they are used to waking up maybe at 7 o'clock or 7, even 8 o'clock to just put on a shirt and just log on to their first meeting at 9 o'clock. So it makes life easier for people. People are enjoying it, and then returning to work is not easy for most people. So I like the fact that I'm sorry, sir, I can't remember your name. Sorry, sir.
Jeffrey.
Mr. Jeffrey said that with his workplace, not everybody comes to work on the same day. So it's a smooth transition program. Some people are coming in today, some are coming in tomorrow. So it's easier that way than asking everybody to just come in at once or make everybody to come in at once and flood the workplace. People are trying emotionally, mentally, people are not okay in this season. Let's be realistic with ourselves. People have lost touch with having lots of people around them. Some people don't know how to behave when they are now in the midst of a lot of people because they've lost touch. So now we need to gradually bring people back. We shouldn't do it. It shouldn't be a one-step thing. It shouldn't be a one-day thing. It should be a gradual process. So employers have that duty of care to make returning to the workplace a smooth transition. Whilst doing that, they also need to follow government guidelines. So can an employer dismiss an employee who refuses to return? Let's look at these two cases. We have Rogers versus Leeds Laser Cousin Limited. The claimant refused to return to work after another colleague began to show symptoms of COVID-19. The claim failed, unfortunately for this claimant, as he himself had breached self-isolation guidance. He's made a claim he wanted to remain working, to still be working from home. And then when he himself took the case to court, they brought something against him because he breached self-isolation guidance during the period of his refusal to work, which somewhat weakened his assertion of serious and imminent danger caused by the virus, as well as the provision of suitable working conditions and COVID-19 measures implemented by the employer. So he lost the case. Like I said, we need to make sure we tighten all loopholes on our own end. If you're claiming that we have someone who is at risk at home and we don't want to come to work, are they finding us in public spaces? Will a colleague find you maybe in a pub or in a clubhouse? What are you doing there when you have someone at home who you can pass on the disease to? And then if you can go to a club, why can't you come to work? So I'm sure this is one of the things they used against him. He breached self-isolation guidance. He was supposed to be self-isolating, but he didn't. It was caught probably outside. So he breached self-isolation guidance. So because of that, his employers used that against him and he lost the case. Now let's look at the second case. Akatatis versus Fortuna Group. His claim of unfair dismissal also failed. He's a key worker and he requested to be allowed to either work from home or be followed as he was uncomfortable using the public transport. Yes, quite a lot of people are uncomfortable using the public transport, and I think I'm one of them as well. I'm skeptical about using public transport. But if I have to, you will definitely see me with my mask. You would also see me with my hand sanitizer in case I can't wash my hands. So it is very important. If you are skeptical about using the public bus, please get your face mask. Always have your face mask on. So his employer denied his request, but they asked him to take a holiday or unpaid leave. His employer felt they were good enough because they asked him to take a holiday or to request for unpaid leave, but he refused. He didn't want that. Actually, the tribunal they kind of listened to him. They were prepared to accept that, and they reasonably believed that the danger was serious or imminent, but that his demands for follow or working from home were not enough because they had given him the option of either taking the holiday or take unpaid leave. So in that situation, because of those two conditions his employers had given him, he lost the case. So in the two cases that have been to the tribunal recently, it was the fault of the claimant. One, he breached the isolation policy. isolation guidance. And the second one, his employer was good enough to ask him to take a holiday or unpaid leave, but he refused. And he felt that was not, the court felt that was not enough. But the tribunal was even prepared to accept that his case was acceptable. For example, not his uncomfortability in using the public transport, which I think is a fair one. If that's the only way he could get to work, then that was a fair judgment. That was a fair case. But the options he's been given, he probably should have accepted one of them. So why am I saying all of this? It is very important to be familiar with our company's policies and procedures, especially regarding back to work and working from home. If you're not comfortable with anything at the workplace, you're best discussing it with your line manager or whoever you report to first before you take actions. Don't take actions on your own. Don't. It is not advisable. If you're still not satisfied, ensure nothing can be found against you when it comes to adhering to precautionary measures that are in place at the workplace. So make sure you tighten all loopholes at your end and make sure your argument is valid. Ensure you also have a genuine reasons for wanting to continue to work from home. It could be you having a health issue. It could be someone you live with, but make sure you have a genuine reasons for not wanting to come back to work. Most importantly, from what I know in my little stay in this country, make sure your reasons are backed up with genuine evidence. If it is you, get evidence from your GP, get evidence of health reports and all of that. Make sure your reasons are backed up with evidence, and then tighten up all loopholes at your end. So that is that with the employer-employee back to work and policies and procedures. Now let's look at safety concerns at places of worship. We now know that since July the 19th, when all restrictions have been taken off, everybody can now gather together. There is no limit to how many people can gather in the places of worship. There is no legal requirements for face masks. There is no requirement for social distancing. We can now start hugging. We can start shaking hands. There are no boundaries now. Do people still feel safe? Some of us still do not feel safe returning to places of worship because, like I said, some of us are still very skeptical about this Delta variant. And also, places of worship is a place where there are no boundaries. Just a few people would respect that personal space. And now that there is no social distancing, it is now left to the church's body or the places of worship's body to decide what measures they need to put in place. Now, this is beyond the capacity of whoever is coming to church about what to put in place, but rather it is in the capacity of the governing bodies of the place of worship. For example, as an individual, if I run or I'm involved in running a place of worship, if you ask me, I will still put social distancing in place. I will still ask people to come in with their masks. And I would also still ask people to respect people's personal spaces. This is very important. Places of worship, schools, public transport, they are the highest, they're one of the highest places where this infection spreads. So we need to be very, very careful as people that are in charge of places of worship. We need to be very careful. Are we protecting people that are coming into our place of worship? Do we have their interest at heart? Are we providing alternative means of worship for those who are vulnerable? For example, since the easing of the lockdown, I don't know if churches still run their online services. All through lockdown, it used to be online services. I can speak about churches because I'm a Christian. So I don't know about other places of worship, but for Christians, all through the lockdown, it was online. It was Zoom. It was YouTube. Do they still provide those alternatives for people? If they are not providing those alternatives for people, are their services being run all at once? making everybody come to church at once. And then the whole place is all filled up with no space. Last year, December, I was looking at people's, just before the new year, as practice, Christians would have the crossover service. And then I was looking at people's social WhatsApp status update. And then I could see places of worship where people were not wearing masks. This is in the UK, where the number of cases were really, really high at that point. Because I remember we were in a lockdown, they locked us down in London around about that time. And I was looking at people's status update. People were in church with no limit, no face masks on, no respecting of private spaces. Everybody was dancing. I understand that it's a good time to praise the Lord. It's a good time to be happy about crossing over into the new year. However, how much of these people do we know? Do we know if they are carrying the virus? A lot of people are asymptomatic. If they are asymptomatic, we don't know they have the virus, and they don't even know they have it. And before they know it, they've passed it on to so many people. People let their guards down last year during Christmas, and then we had number of cases skyrocketing in January. We're gradually walking into that situation right now. Gradually walking into that situation. Recently, there was a lab in Wolverhampton. It was in the news. They, in error, released negative results for about 40,000 patients. They released negative results. Patients who had positive lateral flow tests were given negative PCR test results. How many of those people can they trace again? So a lot of things are going wrong. And then we can see the trend in what's going on at the moment. The number of cases are skyrocketing. I've got some graphs, and those graphs are not encouraging at the moment. So in the places of worship, we need to be very careful. We have a duty of care to protect one another. Even Christ preaches love. The religion of Christianity is a religion of love. So we have that duty of care to protect one another. If you still do not feel comfortable in a worship center, please join the online version. If there is no online version for your church or for your religion, there are other centers around. Thank God, social media is there. YouTube is there. Log on to YouTube. As a Christian, we know our God is everywhere. We don't necessarily have to go to that building. The building is not the church, but the people itself is the church. So we need to find our own way of worship. Would we say when we were worshiping online that God was not hearing us? He was. His ears are not deaf. He is not deaf that he can't hear us. Anywhere. We can pray to him anywhere. Even as Muslims, they pray anywhere. I remember my friend's husband in Nigeria, they were traveling, and he had to tell my husband to stop on the way that he needed to pray. So that means we can pray anywhere. They were on the motorway. He said to him, he needs to pray. And he brought out his mat, and my husband packed for him, and they prayed. During last year, the 2010 EndSARS protest in Nigeria, we saw Muslims praying and Christians forming a shield around them. Christians were praying and Muslims formed a shield around us. We don't necessarily have to go to that physical building. The building itself is not the church, but we are the church, the people, our hearts. We carry God. So we should have that duty of care for one another. If you think you have symptoms, please do not go to church. Do not go to the place of worship. This is really, really sensitive for me. I'm sorry to bring this up, but if you can tell that my tone has changed when it comes to this. We lost a friend this year, February, because of this. Somebody went to church. Somebody who had gone for a PCR test and was waiting results came to church. The person had not gotten his results, and he came to church. Our friend picked the person up, dropped him off, caught the virus. Unfortunately, we lost our friend just because of a singular act of love. He died in service. That's what I keep telling myself. And that's my greatest consolation. So please, if you feel you have the symptom, even if it is cough, if it is cold, please stay at home. You don't necessarily have to go to that place of worship. If you do not feel comfortable to go to a worship center, join the online service. Most places of worship, they now make use of online platforms to transmit their services. So this is very important. We can join them at any point, anytime. And you can always rewind, replay. Daystar, I join Daystar every Sunday. I rewind, I replay if I've missed the time. So it's very important. You can do that as well. If you have symptoms, you're waiting for a test result, stay at home. Protect others, protect yourself. Schools, some of us are teachers. Unfortunately, we can't work from home. This is my dilemma. This is my reality. Dr. Kiakpene, I'm sure you can testify to this. This is our reality. This image sparked investigation last year. A child sent this to the mother, and she was on the bus to school. This is just on the bus. Imagine what it would be like in playgrounds during short breaks or during long breaks. Children don't have boundaries, especially the little ones. The older ones, year 10s, year 11s, okay, year 12 and 13s, they have a boundary. They can just sit quietly and have their meals during break time and have a chat. But year 7, year 6, year 8, year 9, they're jumping all over the place, touching each other, hitting out and hugging each other, staying in personal spaces. Even for teachers, when they come close to me, I just give them the hand, like, just give me my space. But there are times you still have to get close to them, check their work, and even mark books. I remember last year when we resumed, my HOD provided us with gloves in case we need to mark books and we're not comfortable. So if you have all those facilities, PPEs, please make sure you use them. In school, there are no restrictions as to whether you can wear face masks or not. You can wear it on the corridors, but in classroom, we were asked not to wear face masks to teach. So we can't wear face masks anymore to teach. So anyone who is not comfortable, unfortunately, you have to do something about it. Okay. So this was last year. I'm not sure the situation has changed. I'm sure it must have gotten worse because now all restrictions have been eased. So we can now get back onto the bus as normal. So we have a duty of care as parents to constantly re-educate our children about COVID-19. It is very important. We need to constantly remind them, constantly re-educate them that about COVID-19, the safety precautions they should always be taken. Constantly remind them, do they have their hand sanitizers with them? Do they have their face masks if they need to get on the bus to get to school? So we have that responsibility to play as parents. So children don't respect each other's personal spaces, especially the younger children. They're just children. It's just the children thing. So we just have to keep watching out for them, keep encouraging them, keep re-educating them. We can't educate them enough. We have to constantly re-educate them because they forget. So this is one of the reasons why the transmission rate is higher with children, because they don't respect each other's spaces. Unfortunately, a child from a family will take it to another family, and probably in that family, they have an old elderly person or someone who has an immune system that's been compromised, and they pass it on. Children don't really get hospitalized like that. It's the elderly ones that get hospitalized. Public transport. This is getting so annoying because people have let down their guards completely. We can count the number of people that have their face masks on. Very little compared to what we had last year. Now, trams and tubes are now getting full up during during rush hours now. No space for people, and people are standing and holding onto the rails, people holding onto the escalator rails in train stations. No, even before the lockdown started, I cringe when I have to do it. But now I just stand in the middle to make sure I gain my balance and I'm not holding on to anything. I just give myself that support because I can't touch it because of all of this going around. And then if I have to touch the escalator, I use my elbow. Please, let's cultivate that habit of using your elbows to touch to kind of like press buttons on the escalators in public places. This was last year in May, before restrictions were eased. It will be worse now. People have let down their guards. Train stations will regularly make announcements encouraging people to wear face mask coverings, but it's no longer a legal requirement. So people don't care anymore and people can't be bothered. So it's important to put a mask on if you need to get on public transport or do car share. If you do car share to work with other people, please put on your face mask when you're in the car share ride with them. I think we have 2 minutes to 1:10, or is it 1:10 already?
Yeah, 2 minutes, you're right.
Okay.
Go on. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now let's be factual. How many of us still wear our masks when in public spaces? How many of us still worry about our personal space? Let's be real with ourselves now.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. I do once in, to be fair, I will be honest, once in a while I do. There are times I get carried away. For example, I'm coming from work and I need to pick up something in the store before coming home. I just dash out of the car without my mask and then I'm in the store already. I find it rather it's not a good practice. It's not good practice. But there are times we quickly do things and then we forget about it because now it's no longer a legal requirement. So we tend to forget. The personal space one, I'm still very, very particular about it because that's me even before the lockdown. I'm so particular about my personal space. Please maintain that distance. Stay away. So it's still very important for us to still maintain that personal space and that personal distance. So we will look into precautions when we come back from break and what we can do as individuals, look at what the government is doing and what we can do as individuals. So we will be back at 20 past 1
Yep.
for the rest of the session.
Thank you very much. I told you guys, I said she was going to blow your mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I was we're talking about face masks and how important it is to continue to wear our face mask, even though there's no legal requirement. So let's see what's being in place. So this is what we now see on public transport. People don't care anymore. People holding on to railings. People have stopped wearing their face masks. I just need to move this around. Okay, that's fine. They've stopped worrying about the virus. The virus has not disappeared. It's still very much active, very much active. Further lockdowns unlikely, but some winter restrictions are possible. So this is something we need to understand. With the way the number of cases are soaring now, we might have further restrictions, but they are saying that there might not be any further lockdowns. But knowing this government for what they are, because sometimes they say this and they end up doing what they said they would not do. So we don't know yet. Let's just watch the space. So after easing restrictions in July, wearing of face masks, social distancing, and all of that, what remained was the requirement to isolate at the request of the NHS track and trace for exposed unvaccinated people. So they removed everything totally, and that was the only thing that was left, which is not good for us. It was not a good decision, to be fair. Oops. Sorry, my computer just went off. Where is it? Is it gone?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Right. So let's look at what our neighboring countries are doing when it comes to easing lockdown and removing things totally. Let's look at Ireland. In Ireland at the moment, it's still mandatory to wear masks in shops and on public transport. In Spain, you must cover your faces if you're inside or you cannot guarantee a social distance of more than 1.5 meters. So you must wear a mask. Just last week, the health minister in Spain said that despite a fall in coronavirus contagion rates, mask restrictions indoors would remain until spring next year. Now, this is sense. There's sense in what she said. There's been a poll. There was, I think it was in France where you had a poll, and then the same is in Italy. It is still mandatory to wear it inside. Now, these countries, let us not forget that they had very high number of cases last year. So they wouldn't want to make the same mistakes they made. So we also had a high number of cases in the UK. I don't know why we are still making the same mistakes at the moment, as at now. Face mask is nothing compared to the lives that we would lose or that have been lost. The same in Italy. It's the same in Italy, where it is still mandatory to wear it inside. And then France as well, people are still mandated to wear their face masks inside and on public transport. Now, I think this, even though polls want the restriction to be removed, the health ministry says it is too soon. This is in France. And then when I was reading up around this last night, there was a case of someone who boarded the Eurotunnel, Eurostar train from France, north of France, coming into London. And then he was asked to leave the train. because he was not wearing his mask. He's a British man, and was asked to leave the train. In England, he had done nothing wrong, but in France, it was wrong. So if you have to travel, please know the requirements for where you're going to. I know we talked about this in last month. So if you have to travel, know the requirements for where for where you're going. The man was actually they had to make an emergency stop, and they took the man off the train because it was actually going against their law in France, and he was still in France. So number of cases rising. This is something we need to kind of like look at. So here we have limited less testing, wider testing available, 7-day average. This is 47,000 cases, number of daily confirmed cases by date report. This is for 22nd October, and this is just yesterday. This is what we had in June. So July should be somewhere around there. Number of cases increased, and now is still going up in October, which is expected. It's expected because the weather helps it to the weather encourages its spread. So it is expected, but then there are lots of restrictions that have been taken off, which I feel they should still be there. This is another one. This is quite smaller, and then we have the number of cases in August compared to what we have now. This is just alarming for people. Now, for now, this is less than 0.50%. That's the percentage of population infected with COVID, less than 0.5% of the population. But now this is what we have. So this is in August. August, we have more than 1%. When was the restrictions eased off? In July. In July. So now we have more than 1% of the population in August being infected with COVID, and quite a lot of people have been hospitalized again. The hospitals are getting full as well. People are getting into the hospitals. So more than 8,000 in hospital with COVID. People in hospital with COVID, with coronavirus by date. This is October. 8,238 patients are being hospitalized. I know this is nothing compared to what we had in November last year, but then if we had gone this low this year, why are we back up here now? These are questions we need to ask ourselves. Even though the government has eased off the restrictions, what are we doing as individuals? Are we trying to be? Are we being careful not to fall into the hands of this virus? So we need to think about this. 8,238 patients at the moment are being hospitalized. So now let's think about precautions. What precautions can we take as individuals? What precautions does the government have in place, or has the government put in place? So what is the government doing about the increasing number of cases? Because it is clear that number of cases are increasing. Very clear. So according to the government, they have a plan A, plan B, and potentially a plan C. So I skipped, I think there was a typo there. So plan A, plan B, and potentially a plan C. So their plan A is to leave things the way they are. Leave things the way they are at the moment. No restrictions, no face mask, no sanitizing, nothing, no social distancing. And then they switch on to plan B if plan A doesn't work. Obviously, they don't need anybody to tell them that plan A isn't working. So with plan A, they're going to leave all pubs open. They're going to leave everywhere still open, schools still running, churches still opened, and all that. And then plan B will be implemented if A isn't working and cases are increasing. And then they need to get to a certain threshold of number of deaths before they implement plan B. With plan B, there are different stages and phases in plan B. So according to them, they're not going to roll out the whole of plan B at once. So it's going to be one phase at a time. So plan B will be in phases. So it will include compulsory face masks and then introducing vaccine passports to public places. So that's what they are planning to do at the moment. So face masks, I'm sure, will be one of the first few things that will come back, and probably social distancing. And then they will start introducing vaccine passports to clubs and to pubs, which will probably be the last thing they will do, knowing their antecedents. So we know that they like to leave things till the last, and this is what they intend to do. And then finally, their plan B, like I said, it will have to have lots of shots, lots of faces, and they will be released gradually, so not all at once. And then if all doesn't work, and the NHS now faces catastrophic collapse, or the country is hit by a variant that dodges the existing vaccines, then Plan C will be introduced. This comes as this makes sense because we know viruses for what they are. Microorganisms would constantly mutate. So now we are battling Delta variant. Delta variant would also try to find ways of attaching to the respiratory system more effectively. So if that happens and we now have a strain that can now dodge the existing vaccine, then that means it's going to render our old vaccines powerless. Then Plan C will be introduced. They haven't said anything that's going to be included in Plan C, so we don't know yet. We are only just waiting until then. So hopefully we don't get into Plan C. How many people have taken their vaccines? I have. Double dose, I have, yes. If you feel comfortable taking it, please go ahead and do. But if not, I don't, I'm neither here nor there. I feel comfortable taking it, but if you don't feel comfortable taking it, it's up to you. It's a personal decision. However, you need to take precautions if you don't feel comfortable taking it. I don't belong to the school of thought to force someone to take it. I was having that discussion with my aunt, and because her son refused to take it and he lives in Canada. And I said, see, auntie, you can't force him to take it. He's an adult. Let him go and do his reading. Let him go and find out for himself if there are any implications for him to take it. You can't force him. That didn't go down well with her, but it's my opinion. So vaccination is just administration of a vaccine to help the immune system develop protection for an infectious disease, which we all know. The approved ones in the UK, Moderna, Oxford, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and there is a Janssen that will be introduced later in the year. So you could have any of these, and you'll be, if you've had, I think the Janssen one is one dose. I think that's the one that is just one shot. And the others, you have to take either the Janssen or the Moderna. I know one of them is just one shot. And then once you have the one shot, then you'll be fully vaccinated. And the others, there are 2 doses. Once you have the 2 doses, you'll be considered as fully vaccinated. Now, there is something called the booster vaccine. Have we heard about that? Yep.
Yes, I have.
Right. I've read, yeah.
Okay. So the booster vaccine is just to help just as a boost for those that have taken their 2 doses. So it improves the protection you get from the first 2 doses. Who should get this? Not everyone. They don't give everyone the booster one. So it's not available for everyone, but those who are most at risk of the virus and they've had their second dose at least 6 months ago. So they include 50 years and over, anybody age 16 who lives with someone who is at risk, and I think anyone who is age 16 and has health issues. So these are the people that the booster vaccine is for. So if you feel you're eligible for the booster vaccine, I would say please go for it as well. At the moment, more than 95 million vaccine doses have been received across the UK. So we have people that have taken their first doses. Total first dose is 49,000, and then total second dose at the moment, 49 million. And then total second dose is about 45 million, which is a good development because people are opening up to the vaccine now. Unlike last year, people were so skeptical about it. I was one of those who were skeptical about it because I was worried about side effects. But then I did my research because that was the only thing I was worried about, side effects. I did my research and I realized, okay, if this is going to have a side effect, it will have started showing right from the trial. And anything that doesn't show within 3 months, maximum of 3 months, then there might not be any side effects to it. So it's a welcoming development that people are taking the vaccinations and getting fully vaccinated. So that has actually helped us to reduce the number of cases. So if this number of people have received the vaccine, why do we still have high number of cases? So something is still not right at some point. So let's look at the unvaccinated ones. So we'll come to that question later. Let's look at those who have not, the implications for those who have been unvaccinated. Unvaccinated more likely to die with COVID deaths per 100,000 vaccinated, and unvaccinated people within 28 days of a positive test by age. This is between 18th September and 15th October. So 0 to 17, 0, then 30 to 39, very little, very small number of those who have been unvaccinated that will die. We know that the number of the population that are dying with that virus within that age is very minimal before, and then we start noticing it between late 30s to the elderly. So 40 to 59, we have no one who is unvaccinated that have died or likely to die, and then it goes on like that. We can see a wide gap between the unvaccinated and the vaccinated. So somehow the vaccine still provides a measure of protection. That is one thing we need to know. The vaccine still provides a measure of protection. Very important. So this is very useful with the elderly. Let's look at the elderly, especially the 80 plus. The unvaccinated ones, about 120,000 per 120 per 100,000 unvaccinated. Excuse me. And then the unvaccinated is about 40. That's a wide margin. There is definitely a significant difference, even without carrying out a statistical analysis on that data. So it is important that we get the vaccines if we feel comfortable taking it. What's the effect? Older people have the greatest risk of being hospitalized. We know that right from the beginning, even before the vaccines were rolled out. There's been a rise in infections among 17 to 24-year-olds. Bearing in mind that the younger ones are at a lower risk of being hospitalized. The younger ones, they have lower chances of being hospitalized, but then some of them live with elderly people at home. So they are potential carriers that can transmit it to the elderly. But the rate of infection in the 70 plus is just over half its January to February rate. So for the elderly, the rate of infection is just over half its January to February rate, which is a good step. However, the risk of being hospitalized has fallen greatly for older people. So for older people, the risk or their chances of being hospitalized has reduced greatly since the vaccines have been rolled out. So this is a great step towards effectively reducing the impact on the elderly because they are greatly at risk. Their immune system is failing, their respiratory system not as strong anymore. So this is good news towards reduction of the impact on the elderly. So the vaccine somehow is still effective. So now back to my question: why do we still have high number of cases, a surge in the virus, even with the fact that a lot of people, millions of people are being vaccinated, have gotten the vaccine at the moment? For those that have gotten the vaccine, vaccinations do not provide 100% protection. It doesn't. No vaccine offers 100% protection against illnesses. What the vaccine does, with the little I know about vaccines, when you get exposed to that disease, your memory cells that have been made when you got the vaccine will kick into action. So they start to produce antibodies that would fight against the illness. But that does not mean the illness will not come into the body. The illness will come into the virus will come into the body. So the pathogen comes into the body, but once it gets into the body, the memory cells are made immediately because they've been made when you got the vaccination. So that explains why most of us, when we got the vaccination, our arms were heavy, the site became really swollen, and it felt really, really warm because it became inflamed because our white blood cells were made. And after that, what happened was we made memory cells. Now, when you get the virus or the pathogen a second time, the memory cells will kick into play and antibodies will be made quicker. So this does not mean that a vaccinated person can still not pass it around. The only advantage is for the vaccinated person, which is that the vaccinated person can fight it off quicker. So being vaccinated means we are able to fight the pathogens quicker than unvaccinated person. So that is why the number of the adults that are being hospitalized now has greatly reduced. So the vaccine works. It helps to reduce it. However, it doesn't guarantee that we won't have it. So there's a thin line between the vaccination and whether it's working. It is working. It works. But it will not just make the virus make us down. So we won't go down. We won't be hospitalized, or our risk of being hospitalized is very little compared to someone who has not taken the vaccination. So to be fully vaccinated means you've completed a COVID-19 vaccine according to the recommendations. And this one, the best protection against it offers best protection against severe complications. Whilst they are potent, they, however, give you a better chance of fighting the disease. So it helps you, they only give you a better chance to fight off the consequences of getting infected. So instead of being hospitalized, your body defense system rises up to the task. So they help you fight it off at that point, so you don't get hospitalized. So we still have to carry on wearing our masks, even though the government has eased restrictions for those of us that have been vaccinated. Vaccination does not mean don't wear your mask anymore. Then what can I do? When you're fully vaccinated, you need to be very careful. Ensure people still wear their mask, even in public, indoors in public, for maximum protection from the Delta variant. Nobody is sure about the Delta variant, not even the scientists. They are not sure about the Delta variant. It reduces the risks of transmission. And if you've been vaccinated and you have an underlying health conditions or weakened immune system, it is important to wear face coverings inside or outside where social distancing is not possible. Asymptomatic and the infected can transmit the virus, especially in crowded areas. So please, if you fall under the weakened immune system people, please stay away from crowded areas. Immunocompromised, I'll just run through that quickly. I think we have just a few more minutes left. People with immune system that have been weakened and not functioning properly. So there are lots of category in that people. Those with underlying health issues. It could be HIV, it could be sickle cell anemia, it could be lupus. Which other disease could fall into that category? High blood pressure, diabetes. They're all underlying health conditions that can actually trigger more severe complications with COVID. Elderly, pregnant women, children. These are people with that I would put under the category of immunocompromised. They should be responsible for their own safety if they have the capability to do so. I normally would tell the ones I know, you're responsible for your own safety. Don't wait for any government. Especially if you have the capability to do so, please take charge of your own safety. Those who live with them also, we need to be careful when we are out and about. We need to take precautions so they don't get infected and then transmit it to the family members who are immunocompromised. So we all have a duty of care towards these people. Those of us who are fine with our immune system, we have a duty of care towards them. So what are the other precautionary measures we can take personally? Still wear a face mask when you're in a public place. Don't stop washing your hands regularly. We can't overemphasize that. Get a portable sanitizer to either keep in your pocket or in handbags in case of when you're unable to wash your hands. It is absolutely important to maintain that safe distance. Even without COVID-19, even without COVID-19 being there, it used to be the personal space thing with people. So please, let's still maintain that personal space thing. Let's embrace the habit or the attitude of not getting too close for comfort by maintaining the personal space when it is possible. So, in summary, let's just have a quick summary of what we've done so far. Number one, do you know your rights as an employee? 2, are the measures in your workplace suitable enough for your safety and for the safety of your family members? What precautions are you taking in public places, on public transport? Have you made up your mind about taking the vaccine? And also, have you considered the booster vaccination if you're entitled to it? I didn't add that. If yes, have you had your complete doses? If no, are you taking the necessary precautions to protect yourself from getting infected with the virus? So, these are the things I need us to think about as we bring this session to a close. And thank you so very much for listening. And if there are any questions, we will take the questions now.